I got a little choked up with Gabby there. She's one of my teammates, and she's awesome, and I need to recompose myself a little bit here, too. How many of you have been taking notice of what's been going on in Hong Kong? Of course, this crowd would. This crowd would. So a few weeks ago, I went to the very first Rod of Iron Freedom Festival up on the campus of Carr Arms, and it was a great event, by the way. And while I was there, I met a ton of people from around the globe. There were folks from Germany and the UK and Korea, China, Japan, and every time I talked to any one of them, they all echoed the exact same theme. And they basically said, "You are so lucky to have a Second Amendment in America. We are, yeah, lucky, right? We're at the mercy of our government when it comes to arms." So think about that. We are so lucky to have a Second Amendment. Well, I don't call it luck. I call it proper planning by our forefathers. They never wanted the American people to live through what they did under a tyrannical government. So, how many, I know this is little because I was on standby, didn't make a big one. How many of you remember seeing a picture like this? This fella from Hong Kong who was holding up during a rally, "We need a Second Amendment in Hong Kong," right? Well, and I don't know how these guys are connected over at Carr, but they got that guy to come to the Freedom Festival. Yeah. So, you know, he was up there and telling us about how they were fighting, and I'm like, these people don't have arms of any kind. They're fighting for their freedom against the government and against the military with umbrellas. Umbrellas. Could you imagine this gun group putting them down and going with umbrellas? So as this guy took the stage to address the crowd, everything sort of fell silent. Everybody was sort of hanging on his words, and I know I sure was. And so what I want to do is give you some quotes from his speech and give a little interpretation of what we in America might hear may be facing. And he chooses his words very carefully. And so his first quote was, "We want democracy and we want freedom." Amen, absolutely. This is something that they've never had and they want. And could you imagine, like, we take that for granted here. We take that for granted. We're like, it's my freedom, it's my right, I can do that. And it's something that we need to be clinging to, folks, because it may be coming closer to an end than we think. His next quote was, and I love this one, "Our education has brainwashed us. We cannot understand the Second Amendment as a people. We think that it is wrong or inappropriate for the people to bear arms," unquote. Brainwashed. He knows this. He recognizes this. This is what their government does from the time they are small children, right? Is this starting to sound familiar to some of you? We're hearing this in the debates over and over and over, right? You hear it over and over again. You start to believe it from the anti-crowd. Well, we're not going to believe it. We're not going to let the brainwashing continue to happen to our next generations either. That's when you yell. Next quote. "I really hope that the people of Hong Kong can become strengthened and understand the American Constitution and the Second Amendment is a God-given right and is not to be infringed," unquote. He totally, amen, he totally gets that the 2A is inalienable and is not granted by that government, but by God. And many in our government seem to forget that. And remember, the Constitution says what it says, and it doesn't say what it doesn't say. Next quote, "We're also saying that when tyranny becomes a reality, it is our duty to rebel against it, but we don't have the means." This dude's going to be a 3%er, and he is reaching out to thousands of his countrymen because it is a duty of country to rebel. Duty of country. How many of the 150 million gun owners in America are going to stand up for duty of country? That's going to come. That's going to come, right? So here you are. These folks have no arms of any kinds. They have umbrellas, and they're fighting with their hearts and soul. Meanwhile, I'm listening to this little guy, and all I want to do is feed him and hug him and give him guns. But I know he can't take them back with him, right? Next quote. "It's really important for America to treasure this God-given right and not to give it away." Very important here. "The day you lose it, The next day, you will be like Hong Kong. We are trying to make our voices heard, but the government feels no need to heed the voice of the people because they own all the force and the people are disarmed. Scary stuff, folks. Really scary stuff. So that means use it or lose it, right? The moment we allow every little infringement of a law, that incrementalism that I like to talk about, the sooner we're going to lose all our gun rights and our power. And the rest is going to be resting with the government. And hey, they're not listening. They're not listening to us now. We've got to get louder, and we need to make them listen to us. We are not going to be silent majority anymore. No more. Last quote. I can see in America that the people are so privileged because of the Second Amendment. You have the means to resist tyranny, unquote. We are privileged, more so than any other people in the world. We have the means to resist tyranny. Now, certainly, of course, we don't want that to be the case, but we also don't want to be the next Hong Kong. Stick to your guns, gun lobby. I will.